You're watching Idaho's News Channel 7. This is the news at 10.
Today's a good day. We won.
Elation and relief outside an Arizona courthouse today after a jury found Lori Vallow Daybell guilty of conspiring to kill her ex-husband, Charles Vallow. The Doomsday Mom has already been convicted of murdering 2 of her kids and her current husband's wife here in Idaho. We have team coverage for you tonight. Andrea Dearden is going to break down what jurors said right after handing down their verdict and what's next for Lori. But first, we're going to go over to Abby Davis with more reaction from Charles's family. Abby?
Brian, his siblings say it's been a long journey, and this verdict means they finally have justice for their brother. Kay Woodcock, his sister, described the past several years like walking through the pits of hell. She testified during this trial, as well as the 2 in Idaho, Lori's in 2023 and her husband Chad Daybell's last spring. Woodcock says one of the Gem State prosecutors even told her congratulations today. The siblings thanked law enforcement, prosecutors, and everyone else who worked tirelessly on this case. Charles's brother says Lori did not do herself any favors representing herself this time, and he was fairly confident the jury found her guilty based on the short time they deliberated. Our sister station in Arizona asked them what they wanted to say to Lori. Take a listen.
We got you. And you're not the smartest person in the room, and you can just hide away and everybody's going to forget about you. We'll be on our way through our life, and she'll be rotting in prison where she deserves to be.
And like Charles always used to say, love always wins.
Woodcock says it was a relief to really be able to talk about Charles during this trial, since the others focused on the murders of 2 of Lori's kids and her current husband's late wife, Tammy. She says even though Charles was killed first, this is how he would have wanted it, getting justice for the kids and Tammy first and him afterward. Andrea, interestingly, one of the jurors said today, out of everything over the last couple of weeks, Woodcock's testimony was among the hardest to hear, which is very interesting.
That's right. We did hear that from them. Kay Woodcock was one of 19 witnesses to take the stand during the trial. She was the one person we heard from with the closest relationship with both the victim, her brother Charles, and the defendant, her former sister-in-law. She told jurors that she loved Lori and was close to her in the early years of their marriage, but she also told jurors there was no doubt in her mind that Vallow Daybell and Alex Cox planned to kill Charles. Now, several of the jurors in this case spoke with reporters after the verdict was read. One of them told us that she had to fight back emotions during that testimony from Kay, in listening to her talk about her love for her brother. Jurors also told us that several people on the 12-person panel went into deliberations Monday night believing Vallow Daybell might not be guilty of conspiring to kill Charles. But they said going back through all of the testimony and re-examining the evidence presented by the prosecutor over the course of those 9 days removed all doubts.
For me, it was the text messages that did it as far as evidence. And I feel like we uncovered some lies.
And the jurors also talked about all of the questions they had. Why were Lori and her brother Adam estranged? And some of those obvious gaps, like where were Tylee and JJ? And it wasn't until the verdict was read and they were allowed to leave the courthouse that they learned Tylee and JJ were murdered, and that Lori Vallow Daybell was convicted of conspiring to have them killed too.
It's insane, honestly. That's the only word I can put to it, is that it's mind-blowing. I can't think of anything like even close to that, and how she's in that position is just crazy.
Prosecutors did plan to present information about Daybell Vallow's previous felony convictions to those jurors following today's verdict, and it would have been part of the sentencing phase of this case. The state was prepared to argue in favor of aggravating circumstances that would have allowed the judge to issue a stronger sentence. But the defendant instead agreed to accept those aggravating factors as true rather than asking the jury to hear evidence and decide for themselves.
Okay, so this part is confusing to me. So you're telling me none of those jurors knew anything about JJ and Tylee, despite all of the Dateline episodes, the documentaries, the books by jurors, all of that stuff. They didn't know.
That's exactly right. In fact, that is the challenge of finding an impartial jury. They had to make sure that nobody on that panel had any of the previous knowledge about Lori Vallow Daybell, or, they asked lots of questions to make sure that they had no previous information about her convictions. And now they're going to have to do it again. Right. That's what you have to remember, is they're going to have to figure out, they're going to have to find another impartial panel to hear the next case, because Vallow Daybell will be back in a Maricopa County, Arizona courtroom in early June for another murder conspiracy trial. In this case, she's accused of conspiring with her late brother Alex to kill her niece's ex-husband, Brandon Boudreaux. Now, Brandon was shot at outside of his home in Gilbert, Arizona in October of 2019, but he was not hurt. So he is the only victim in any of the cases against Vallow Daybell to still be alive. Brandon was in the courtroom today for the guilty verdict. Tonight, he sent a statement that read, in part, "We support all those who helped make this day happen. We support this decision. We stand with truth and hope for justice. Charles deserved to have this small sliver of justice." Now, that murder conspiracy trial is expected to start in early June, and it will be then that Vallow Daybell will be sentenced on today's conviction, if there's a conviction in June, and then she'll be moved back to Idaho to serve out the remainder of her 3 life sentences.
Which is also still hard for me to wrap my head around, that these events took place in 2019 and before.
Yes.
So we're still dealing with stuff that is more than 5 years old.
Exactly.
Amazing. All right. Thank you very much, Andrea.